Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Todd Clint's SharePoint Podcast, number 236, recorded live on February 16th, 2015. I am your host, and not the Bachelor from Iowa. I hear there's some Bachelor stuff going on. That's all some other guy. I don't know where he's at, but I'm me. I'm Todd Clint, and I'm recording this live in my basement, not my parents' basement, mind you, but my very own basement here in Iowa. Before we get started too much further, I have to give a shout out to my homies at Rackspace. You can go out to sharepoint.rackspace.com and find out about all the great SharePoint offerings we have. It is a lovely seafoam blue now. We've redone it. And also the regular Rackspace page, rackspace.com, has also been redone. So go out there, check those out. Let us know what you think about them. When those little live chat bubbles come up, by all means, click that. Have a chat with those guys. Really friendly folks. You know, if you want to find out, what type of pizza you should order for the night or what's on TV, those guys love to chat. They're just sitting in a dark room looking for people to talk to. So go out there to sharepoint.rackspace.com and just regular www.rackspace.com. All right, for the first part, the production notes, things went pretty well. Last week was the one recorded live in Austin at SP TechCon. Shane was there. He's a big screw-up, so anything that went poorly, I blame on him completely, and I think the folks that were in the chat room or in the room would agree with me. The sound was a little iffy, a little scratchy. That's because I wasn't using my fancy Yeti mic here. I was using those PlayStation SingStar mics. Who would have guessed that the audio quality would not be top-notch from $30 PlayStation mics that I bought from some stranger on the internet? I'm shocked. I know that we're all shocked. The audio did sound a little better on YouTube, though. They must do some cleaning up when you upload that. But the sound was a little iffy, and I got the blog post out a little late. Part of that is because I'm lazy. Part of that's because I had a blog post out there that I didn't want to kill by putting this one on top of it. But everything went pretty well. But other than that, looks all good. All right, so now we have a special treat for tonight. You guys have had to suffer through just me for like 4 years, and then I started bringing that goofball Shane in, having him sub for me sometimes, having him join me sometimes. That never went well. Nobody likes Shane. You guys were a great audience for him, though. You acted like you liked him, but nobody really does. But tonight we have our first non-Shane or Todd guest on. A friend of mine, Bill Baer, works at Microsoft. He's a really big deal. He's going to tell you all about it in a minute, but he has agreed to come on, so I'm going to unhide him so that he can join us in the video stream now. So Bill, go ahead, say hi to the folks, and give yourself an introduction.
Thanks, Shane. So I put on a celebratory hat for this rare occasion that I could join you. I'm Bill Baer. I'm a product manager in our SharePoint product group, and I am privileged enough to be in the company of all of you that are listening today, with the exception of the individual that is producing this today. So how's it going?
Good. No, you're not just a product manager. You're like a senior product manager, right?
Yeah, I'm getting old.
So do you allow the non-senior product managers to like make eye contact with you when they see you in the hall, things like that?
Oh, absolutely. When feeding me grapes or shrimp or lobsters.
I'm glad to see that this hasn't gone to your head, because I've known you for a long time. I knew you before you were a senior product manager way back in the day. I'm glad to see that this life of wealth and privilege hasn't gone to your head.
Oh, my hat's getting smaller.
So I did want to mention you are an MCM. Which versions of SharePoint are you an MCM for?
2007 and 2010.
Excellent. One of the first MCMs, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So I was in the very first rotation, and then I taught in all of our subsequent rotations.
That's awesome. So the MCM program, for those of you that haven't been paying attention for the last couple of years, was a great program. The Microsoft Certified Master Program was kind of the best of the best of the best, and then it just kind of vanished one holiday weekend, and we've all kind of been mourning its loss ever since. So it's awesome to have an MCM, because there will be no more MCMs. So once you all die off, they're done. So one of the things that I wanted to mention was that Bill and I have one thing in common. I am not an MCM, and I'm not a senior product manager, but one of the things that Bill and I have in common is that we both married women from Iowa. So we have that going for us.
It's a lovely place.
Yeah.
It's excellent.
Though having talked to your wife, you never come to Iowa. You're always busy when she comes back, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. I don't have much desire to
Well,
visit Iowa.
we'd love to have you. And so Bill's wife. So Iowa, despite the rumors, we don't all know each other. There's like 3.5 million of us. But I did grow up in the same part of Iowa as Bill's wife. So, we might know some of the same people. But we'd love to have you. Come on back anytime. We'll let you in. It'll be awesome. We have
You may
planes
be
here.
related.
We might be. It's quite possible. Yeah. And I think where she's from, they have the indoor plumbing now. So it's all good. All the comforts of home.
Yeah, and telephone. We used to communicate over Morse code for the longest time, but
Smoke signals. So funny thing about that, the town that your wife grew up in, if I remember right, it's Spencer, right?
yes, it is.
So Spencer has a distinction that they are the reason that we can't buy fireworks in Iowa anymore. Apparently, a while back, a long time ago, before my time, even before Bill's time, some folks were playing with fireworks in Spencer and tried to burn the damn place down, and so they made fireworks illegal for all of us.
As they should be.
We don't hold that against them, though. So I brought you on. There's a bunch of stuff going on, crazy stuff going on in the SharePoint world right now. It seemed like things kind of got quiet for a while, and then about 6 months ago, it just got insane. So I wanted to bring you on. You've had some pretty good blog posts here in the last month or so. So I wanted to get you on and have you talk a little bit about those. So where do you want to start?
Yeah, let me go ahead and start. So it is definitely an exciting time for SharePoint. I think for a lot of people, that momentum that you typically see around the SharePoint product is starting to build again, and the community is starting to get more and more excited. And that's traditionally the way it's gone. I know over the past couple of years, a lot of people kind of look at SharePoint and say, "Hey, SharePoint's going away. It's getting quiet. There's not a whole lot going on in the community." But that's just kind of typical of the release cycle. You have two products today. You have what exists in Office 365 and what exists on premises. And because of the release cadence of those two products, which you tend to see is there's a lot of momentum around Office 365. We're constantly innovating. We're constantly doing something new. So it garners a lot of attention. And with on premises being on a 2 to 3 year cadence, it doesn't tend to get the same amount of attention throughout the course of its lifetime. So we really have these kind of, the ebb and flow effect where there's, a ton of momentum leading up to it, a lot of community engagement, a lot of excitement, and then that kind of goes downhill a little bit as, it flattens out around 2 years into the product. But fortunately enough, here we are. We're on the eve of yet another SharePoint release. So like I said, it's kind of an exciting time, and things are picking up. As you can see, we're kind of full steam ahead leading up to the Ignite event. That'll be our big disclosure moment across SharePoint, Exchange. You'll see a lot of SQL Server, vNext. You'll see a lot of Windows. You're looking at me like you want me to shut up, so I'll stop there.
No, well, in my defense, I think I always look at you like that. But no, it's funny because for me, I'm an on-prem guy. I haven't got into the cloud stuff as much or as early as most folks. And you guys hit the cloud hard a couple of years ago. And I think that's part of the reason that the on-prem folks kind of felt a little ignored, a little unloved. But I hadn't ever really thought about it in the fact that you're right, there was kind of a lull in the previous versions as we kind of got everything figured out. But when those were going on, we didn't have the cloud product to keep us chatting, so we just never really noticed it. But I think you're right. I think that's part of it.
Yeah, I think at the same time, and kind of interesting is that SharePoint in the cloud has been around probably a lot longer than most people think it has. So, most people think SharePoint Online, and they think the last 3 years, starting in October of 2012, when, in all actuality, we began this SharePoint in the cloud endeavor way back in early 2004 with Microsoft Managed Solutions. And that eventually evolved into BPOS, which eventually evolved into Office 365. So it's really been something we've been doing for a long time. It's just that with Office 365 and the new Office, the momentum really picked up and the rate of innovation really changed. Do you want to see what I looked like back then when I started on SharePoint?
I would love to. Is there a way for you to show us?
Can you see that? Oh.
Say something.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep. So I muted my mic so that it wouldn't grab the video from you.
Yeah, see. Look, I had hair.
That is pretty good. I've never known you to have that much hair. That's crazy. Um, so you're right. So when I was thinking about when you were saying, well, everybody thinks SharePoint Online started with 2013, I was going to try to look like a big shot and say that I had actually worked on BPAWS, but I didn't realize there was a version before BPAWS. So that version, the Microsoft Managed Solution, was that on SharePoint 2003 then?
That was. So back in those days, we had started to evolve the Microsoft Managed Solution service with 2001. And when we launched the service as a live service, we were finally on Portal Server 2003. So, the reality is the SharePoint has existed in the cloud for almost a decade, and obviously it's matured quite a bit since then, and SharePoint 2013 kind of represented today it represents kind of the genesis block of what SharePoint is in Office 365. It's kind of that fundamental or foundational piece of code that we actually, found that would, enable us to deliver it as a service.
Yeah, it's so having touched BPAWS and feeling kind of dirty about it afterwards, and then having touched the SharePoint 2010 version of SharePoint Online, the 2013 version does feel like the first version that I actually don't bust out in laughter immediately when I touch. So it's definitely it's gotten there. It's a contender. I like it. Now, one of the blog posts that you put out here in the last couple of weeks is the SharePoint Journey, and talking about all the different versions of SharePoint. So I thought I would take this opportunity again, I'm in your shadow and I feel very inadequate, so I'm trying to do everything I can to not feel quite so bad. So I did want to bring up that I have a SharePoint 2001 CD.
Look at you, and
yeah.
It's a trial.
Yeah, and this is, so I remember this very distinctly because I was at the Exchange conference at the MEC in 2000, and this was the first time that I ever saw any demos of SharePoint. And it was during the keynote, and I think this was the keynote where you guys had Christopher Lloyd, who was Doc Brown in all the Back to the Future movies. I think he was part of it. But they showed what was Tahoe, and it was just still a preview then. And they showed all the search stuff and all that. And I remember the time I was an IT guy, and I worked at a company of like 1,000 people, and I saw this Tahoe thing that would be SharePoint and the search and all that. And I remember thinking, oh my God, who would ever use this? This is like a solution in search of a problem. This is trash. No one will ever use this. And look at me 15 years later.
Yeah, those were good times. So I thought, with Exchange or with Ignite right around the, and obviously for us using Ignite to really, show the world what SharePoint 2016 is, it would be kind of good to look back. Not just from a release perspective. Hey, we released this in 2001, and in 2003 we did this. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to put a different spin on it to give people an idea of where it came from. So obviously Exchange ironically had this storage solution called the Web Storage System, or WSS. There's kind of the irony in it.
Yep.
And there was this other product that we were working on in the collaborative space called Tahoe. And those two kind of converged, which gave us, Portal Server 2001 and the kind of storage system it has today, the one that everybody wants back. And then, in 2003, between those two releases, we started doing some stuff with digital dashboards, and we kind of pulled that all together into what 2003 was. So, you remember the old dashboards, the old C buckets, and those kind of things, and then it just kind of evolved from there. We hit 2007. We had this new SSP model for services, and then we got to 2010, and we found what people are familiar with today, the service application architecture. And the good thing is we found something we feel is scalable, that is resilient, that we can keep going with, which is why we kept it in 2013. And then, we're going to continue to evolve that kind of capability because it's the one that makes the most sense.
Yeah, so that was interesting. When I first worked with, so I actually had a production SharePoint 2001 server that I ran, which is how I ended up being the SharePoint guy. And so SharePoint Team Services 2001, not Portal, not the thing I'm rocking over here, but Team Services stored all of the attachments in the file system. It didn't use the web storage stuff. And you all can't see it, but Bill's playing with all the hats in my preview window here. So STS 2001 stored everything in the file system, which had some significant drawbacks to it. And then SharePoint 2003 came out and everything went into SQL. And we all went, oh, this is awesome. And then have spent the last, 12 years now trying to find ways to get the files back out of SQL into the file system. So it's, and every time anybody talks about that, I'm like, yeah, I've been there. It was scary.
Yeah, those were, definitely good times. So, like I said, it was kind of a way to look back. I'm sorry, I'm trying to join the chat, so I'm just trying to figure out how that works.
Those jackals will ignore those guys there.
So, anywho, like I said, well, I kind of troubleshoot that problem. So, yeah, so anyway, I thought it'd be kind of good to look back, kind of reflect on where SharePoint came from. And, if you start digging into where it came from and how it evolved, for some people, they may be able to make some educated guesses about, where we're going to take it. And I think where we're going to take SharePoint 2016 will surprise some. I follow a lot of people in the community, and, I read a lot of comments, particularly speculation about what we might be doing with 2016. And I've seen a number of things. Some people are relatively accurate, others are kind of way off. I think what's going to be really surprising is what we actually do deliver as part of 2016, because our goal is to not just ship a product. And if you think about what that means is we could have relatively easily taken a point-in-time snapshot of, say, SharePoint Online and put that in a box and checked something on our commitments that said, hey, we've shipped SharePoint 2016, yay, attaboy, pat yourself on the back. A little bit of golf clap.
Well done, Bill. Well done.
You're welcome. And we could have done that, but what we really set out to do, from an objective perspective, is we looked at SharePoint, both past and present, and we want to deliver a server product that adds value to our on-premises customers. So really, the objective that we set forth is we don't just want to ship something for sake of shipping something. We want to ship something that actually adds value to our existing customer scenarios and builds upon what SharePoint has always been known as. So, the key thing there is we're definitely going to do some cool stuff. We'll share it with you, Ignite. I'd love to be able to tell you all the cool stuff we're doing today, but then I won't be able to tell you at Ignite because I won't be around anymore.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, nobody watches this. It's like you and me and my mom and maybe one of my cats, though, so you could spill any secret and nobody would ever find out. But I understand we have to wait. So Ignite is 3 months away now, something like that. So you guys have leaked out a little bit about what the content's going to be at Ignite. But what can you do to whip the listeners and the viewers into a lather about going to Ignite? Get them all excited about it. Yeah,
thinking about Ignite, one of the things I think it's kind of a misconception is for people who've been to SharePoint conferences, they're familiar with a wide array of sessions, sessions that are measured in the hundreds. And because it's a SharePoint branded conference, the assumption is that all of those sessions are SharePoint centric sessions. Albeit when you look at a SharePoint conference, even go back and look at 2014, we had a ton of sessions on Azure, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, ACS. We had sessions on SQL Server, a variety of which always on, database mirroring, a number of different things. We had Windows Server sessions. But because they were all categorized or lumped underneath this kind of SharePoint brand, the appearance was, hey, they've got 200 plus SharePoint, and now they look at kind of the early iteration of the Ignite session catalog, and it feels like there's not a ton of SharePoint sessions there. The reality is that a SharePoint conference wasn't only just SharePoint sessions, it was all the dependent technologies as well. Now, if you really want to see how many sessions there are related to SharePoint, think about all of the various technologies you need to understand in order to deploy or manage SharePoint. Think about SQL Server, think about Windows Server, think about identity, all those various aspects, and now go back to the session catalog. And what you're going to find out is there's going to be over 600 sessions that are uniquely applicable to what you do. So while the session title may not be SQL Server X and SharePoint, 20 whatever it may be, 2016, the session itself may just be labeled, SQL Server X Futures. And those are things you need to understand. So the difference is the same sessions are there, they just don't have the SharePoint brand kind of embedded in them. So, truth be told, there's going to be 3 times as many sessions that may be relevant to your particular role depending on what you do. So, like I said, it's going to be a good time. There's going to be a ton of content, both SharePoint-centric content, like, hey, what's new in SharePoint 2016, as well as dependent technologies. What's new in SQL Server vNext? What's new in Windows Threshold? And all of these are going to come together and converge, and they're going to be necessary for you to be ready for the next generation of SharePoint.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the frustrations that I've had, though not as bad, because I've always gotten to go to tech ed and all that, was I dabble with PowerShell, I dabble with SQL. At SharePoint-only events, there's not deep content for that. There's a couple of sessions on the obligatory stuff you mentioned, like Always On and all that. But if I want to find out crazy stuff like troubleshooting SQL, those sessions never existed at the SharePoint conference. But stuff like that is going to exist at Ignite. So I think there's going to have to be a mindset shift for Ignite. A lot of SharePoint folks are a little nervous, but I think you're exactly right. They're just going to need to look and see what the other things they work on are. And a lot of people don't just work on SharePoint. They actually do other things in their day job. So there'll be stuff about those technologies too. Is that a party hat? What is that?
That was a corn hat.
Corn hat.
Just Iowa. Sorry.
No, it's very flattering. You can, most people couldn't pull off a corn hat like that, Bill, but you're doing it.
I'm still trying to figure out how to join the chat. I'm sorry.
Am I making you talk too much? Is that?
No, I'm troubleshooting some toddclint.com issues.
So go to toddclint.com/netcast. There's a window in there that's got the live stream. Don't click that because that's you. So there'll be like a mirror thing and the universe will explode. But below that is the chat room. Type in a name and hit connect. So
I just did. Wow, what is this? Is this like IRC?
This is exactly IRC. Yep. So
okay, so I am in the.
You are there. Yep. So the hooligans in the chat room go easy on Bill. He's clearly flummoxed by this technology. So type slowly, and don't use big words. So one of the things that you kind of hinted on, but I wanted to get it out and clear and easy to digest for my listeners because they're they like to hear this kind of stuff. The sessions that are out there now at ignite.microsoft.com are not all of the sessions. More sessions are going to be added, probably including SharePoint sessions, correct?
Yep. Yeah, so we're constantly evolving the session catalog for Ignite, and why are you smiling?
Because the hat was just kind of floating in the air, and you leaned back, and then it just kind of slid onto your head. It was an amazing effect.
Oh, thanks. So from an Ignite perspective, we're constantly evolving kind of the session catalog. What you see today is some of the early sessions that we kind of had a bead on very early on throughout the planning process. So, if you think about it, a long time ago, when we started the conference, we knew that there was going to be a set of sessions that we wanted to deliver. Great examples of which is SharePoint 2016 sessions. We knew we wanted to get that content out. Now, I think for many people, you're kind of looking at it and saying, hey, there's not that many 2016 sessions. And the reality is there are a lot of 2016 sessions. A lot of the 2016 content may be embedded somewhere else. So you may see a hybrid session that talks about hybrid search. That hybrid search scenario may be one that we've evolved in 2016. For pure 2016 sessions, yeah, we've got kind of a broad overview session, which is going to be great. If you're looking to understand kind of our strategy and our vision and our objectives for shipping the next generation of SharePoint and beyond, it's going to be a great session for that high-level content. And then we're going to have kind of a what's new for IT Pro session, which is basically, hey, what are all the IT investments that you're making in 2016? And for many, you're kind of looking for those sessions about upgrade or deployment specifics, right? So right sizing search, or implementing some particular workload. And truth be told, is what you're getting at Ignite is going to be a very early look at SharePoint 2016. So it's not going to be based like at other SharePoint events. If you think about the way that they've worked, usually what happened is a beta release has preceded, usually a public beta has preceded that event, like in the case of SharePoint 2012 or SPC 2012, even SPC 14. So, there was an opportunity for people to gain some knowledge on the product and then deliver some sessions on our behalf for particular issues like upgrade or deployment or high availability or disaster recovery. In this case, we're coming in with a very early version of SharePoint way prior to when we anticipate doing any kind of public beta. So what you're going to see is, what we know, and you're going to see that evolve over time. So after the Ignite event, we're going to be sharing more and more details as we move further down the development cycle. But like I said, what you're seeing is a very early release, a lot of our vision, a lot of our strategy, where we want to take the product. So it's going to be pretty cool. Even if you don't see a ton of session catalog type content, you're going to have opportunities through some of the partner theater events. You're going to have opportunities at Ask the Experts. You're going to have opportunities at the various kind of ancillary things that we do at conferences. You can always talk to our engineering people who are going to be there, and we're going to be, open and transparent about what we're doing with the product.
Excellent, excellent. Now catch up with the chat room. There's been some real gold nuggets in there. You don't want to miss out on that. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting thing. And I think one of the things, so I was part of the Ignite Roundtable and got to go down to Chicago a couple months ago and chat with the folks who were setting Ignite up, and they kind of went about the sessions differently this year, for better or for worse. One of the things that they did was, like you said, they had content that they wanted to talk about, and they knew that early. And you guys did a thing where you let the people who are going to be going to Ignite tell you what they wanted to hear about, as opposed to how it normally works, where you have people who want to speak tell you what they want to speak about. And it was more of an attendee-centric view. And I like the idea. It's from a speaker coming out from the other side, it's been a little confusing, but I think for the attendees, I think it's going to be probably a win. Has something shiny caught your attention, Bill?
Yeah, I think for the attendees, there's going to be a great opportunity at Ignite because, as you mentioned, we did it a little bit differently this time around. We really wanted the community to tell us what they wanted to hear. And you're right. A lot of times with past events, it's the speakers telling us what they want to speak about. And then, we kind of gauge sessions and speakers based on that feedback. But this time, it's really been an opportunity for the community to say, hey, these are the things we want to know about. Now, of course, we kind of seeded some sessions in there that we felt, were necessary because we have a story to be able to tell or want to tell. But at the same time, we're going to have a ton of content that I think kind of meets everybody's needs. And when you have over 600 sessions, I'm sure you're going to find something, that meets your criteria or what you want to know about.
Yeah, I think so. I think it might end up being the other way. It might end up being a little overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think
so
for some,
things there.
Yeah, I think for some it can be overwhelming. But if you look at it this way, let's say you only care about SharePoint, you can only go to the SharePoint sessions, and you should be able to make them all, unlike a SPC. And that's kind of the other thing that we thought about. A lot of people are sometimes breadth isn't the right solution. When we had 240 plus sessions at SPC 14, feedback just kept pouring in that I don't have time to attend all of these sessions. It makes it difficult for me because I have to pick and choose between two sessions that I really want to be at. So it's kind of a coin toss.
Yeah.
So this time, we have a better opportunity to have very targeted content that addresses, the majority of our attendees' needs.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. The scale of this conference is crazy. I've never been to one this large before, and so I think the first one's going to have some rough edges, just as attendees get used to this new idea and as Microsoft puts one on. But I think this idea of these huge conferences, I think it's got some legs. I think it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out. So a couple of things before I let you go. I know you're a busy man and all that. I wanted to mention that there is a user voice link for folks to give feedback to the SharePoint team. Do you have anything profound or anything to say about that?
Yeah. So like I said, one of the things that I talked about in the very beginning is we really wanted to make SharePoint 2016 a great release that added value to our customers. It wasn't, like I said, we could have done a number of different things from a product perspective, but our objective was to create a great and compelling server for our customers. So in effort to do so, one of the things that most people are familiar with, particularly if they've been following Office 365, the developer topics and whatnot, is we wanted to solicit community feedback and be able to engage with our community as we worked through our development life cycle to understand, what does the community need? What do they expect out of the product? What kind of suggestions exist out there? So I guess that's just one more way of us saying, hey, we're taking this on-prem server product seriously. We're committed to it, and we want your feedback, related to the direction that we take it. And we're going to be taking a look at user voice on a weekly basis. So we have a team assigned to looking at the feedback that we receive. And so you'll notice over the course of this next week that we're going to begin creating statuses around items, whether the feedback is in the plan or, something that we just object to or, something that we're committed to doing. So for those that are familiar with user voice, you probably know how it works. But I think at the end of the day, the message is that we're serious about SharePoint 2016. User voice is just one of those ways that we're showing we're serious about it. We're going to begin to talk about it more and more and more, but I think what people are going to find is we're going to actually deliver a great server product, because this is what differentiates SharePoint 2016 from any previous release that we've ever worked on, is that this is going to be based on the experience that we have of running SharePoint at scale as a component of Office 365. In the past, we've never had that opportunity. We've never deployed and managed SharePoint at scale, so we never really understood a lot of the characteristics and challenges with maintaining a SharePoint deployment. 365 has given us a number of different things. One, it's given us the opportunity to understand how to manage and deploy SharePoint so we can build better tooling and capability to help IT. The other thing it's done as well is, as part of the service, we get real-time customer feedback. So through A/B testing, through telemetry, we understand what features work well, what features aren't working well. What happens if we move a nav item, 3 pixels to the left versus where it used to be. So we have an opportunity to understand how our customers are actually using the product and what they feel good about, what features resonate well, which features don't resonate well, and we can make informed product decisions based on that. So 2016 is going to be a compilation of not only feedback we receive from you as the community through user voice, but from our own learning as a aspect of managing 365, both in the IT development and information worker space. So we've really got this breadth view into what it takes to build a great server product for 2016. And I'm kind of going through some of the feedback.
So I wanted to mention, for those of you that are doing the audio bit, that the URL for that is sharepoint.uservoice.com, and you can put your stuff in. Also, you kind of mentioned it a little bit, but there's the Office roadmap is out there that kind of talks about different pieces that you guys are working on. And I think if you go to blogs.office.com/roadmap, that'll also give people an idea about that. One of the things that I wanted to stress, two things actually, is it's good to hear you again reiterate that the on-prem product is a real thing and going to keep going. I think a lot of people lost faith in that, and so it's good to hear that message being pounded in hard that it's a thing. It's going to keep going on. Second, I'd like to hear you guys talk about how running SharePoint is molding how you produce a product, because I know for years I've been trying to tell you how people run your product and nobody would listen to me. So it's good to see you guys finally coming around.
Yeah, I think, and I was kind of going through some of the feedback there in the chat. Let me just take another quick look. There was a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Let me just go through. You're probably looking at me staring at my screen, and I look like an old man because I'm like leaned all the way into it like this.
Yeah. If you could just say, get off my lawn, that would be perfect.
Yeah. So one of the questions was, sorry, I thought I saw my neighbor. One of the questions was, can you really make, what is that? This is not a dating site. You must be willing to meet ugly. What kind of ad shows up on your chat room, dude?
I don't know, but click it. I get paid like $7 for each one of those. Yeah, just click that.
Okay, so
I don't know what it is.
Does anybody else see that in the chat room? That ad that's right above it?
That's probably an ad from the web client that I use. I never use it. I actually use a full client, but
okay, I just took a screenshot.
Distracted by your dating options, Bill. You're happily married.
Yeah, I just took a screenshot because this is awesome. So anyway, one of the questions was, hey, does submitting user voice feedback really make a have an impact on the way that we design the product? And the simple answer to that question is yes. Where we're at today, we're early in the development cycle for SharePoint 2016. And, for some, you may look at it and say, it's kind of odd for you guys to be very early in the development cycle, considering you started talking about this at SPC, 14. We have very short and fast sprints. So, we can build the product in a very short time frame. But so there's plenty of opportunity through user voice. We would have never started it if we didn't want that feedback to drive us in the right direction. So we could have, there was never a user voice for SharePoint on premises, and we could have just maintained status quo and kept moving on in that direction and developing the product as we see, fit for our customers. But we really wanted to use user voice as an opportunity for us to see exactly kind of twofold. One, for us to measure what we're doing against what the feedback is. So if some of the work that we're doing maps to 50% of the feedback, we know we're making the right level of progress in respect to what our customers want. The other thing, too, is there's going to be the bucket that we need to fill, and we're looking for feedback to guide us in the right direction. So we have strategy discussions about how to, manage specific investments around the product. So, truth be told, we're actually using that to impact what we do. Kind of going through here, I saw that one. Somebody asked, what do I have growing out of my head? That was a corn.
That and your military flag also. I've got one of those upstairs as well.
Oh, right up there behind me? Yep. I'm kind of looking through here. I'll probably answer most of these in the chat room. Something about cookies.
So I do want to...
Somebody asked about InfoPath.
Yeah, hit that one.
Yeah, that was a decision largely since so much effort, time and investment was made to execute that finally done InfoPath funeral. It only seemed fitting to bring it back.
Was it like zombie InfoPath now? Is that?
No, I think from a InfoPath perspective, we heard the feedback. I know when we announced kind of deprecation of InfoPath, and we started to move further and further away from InfoPath, the community felt like InfoPath was something that we needed to maintain. The truth be told, we've been committed to InfoPath all along for on-premises server for SharePoint Server 2016, and there's a right reason for that. We needed to be able to support upgrade. We can't just take something away with no viable upgrade path. So InfoPath was going to be there anyway. A lot of capabilities you're going to see are going to be there because we have to support upgrade. We're not just going to leave you lost in order to not support a particular feature because we don't want to. So here's a way to think about it. A lot of people think of deprecation as meaning something's gone. So if you think about like classic auth mode deprecation, deprecation means that in the version of the product we've deprecated it in, that means that capability won't be advanced. So let's say we deprecate feature foo in 2010. That means that feature is not going to be advanced in 2010. It's going to be the same feature you got in like 2007. What that generally means is in 2013 it won't be there. So the release following the release in which it was deprecated, it's typically made obsolete. Now, since we didn't deprecate InfoPath in 2013, we're going to keep it around for 2016 to facilitate the upgrade motion, and that'll give plenty of opportunity for those that are using InfoPath today to migrate, and then as 2016 kind of goes through its motions in the market, we'll continue to evolve our form strategy, so that piece will come into play throughout the course of the 2016 release. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time.
So what I'm hearing is that the only reason you guys brought InfoPath back was just to stick it to Joel and his funeral party. Is that the takeaway from here?
Yeah, my flag is for the same reason as yours, Todd. It's my dad's.
So mine's my grandfather's, but.
So info. I'm going through the comments here. Cool.
So one of the things that I wanted to mention about the user voice thing is a lot of people get cynical about whether Microsoft listens to this feedback or not. And there's a hysterical story from like 6 years ago where Shane and I were out on campus there, and we were talking to Richard Riley when he was still on the team about some problem with SharePoint, I think 2007, and we were screaming at him and telling him it was the biggest problem ever, and you guys were fools for not fixing it, and just going that whole thing. You guys don't run the product, you don't know what we see, all that stuff that Shane would always say, and I would always be embarrassed, but I would play along. And so Richard was telling us it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal. And then he actually brought up the telemetry from the consumer, the CEWP, and showed us like the first 50 things on that list. He's like, the thing that you're complaining about is nowhere on this list. Get out of my office and shut up. And so I learned a lot of lessons that day. Number one, Shane doesn't know what he's talking about. But number two, that you guys, even back then, looked at that list. Richard didn't know where the thing we were talking about was at, but he knew it wasn't at the top. He knew what was at the top. And so I was absolutely cynical about that before that experience, but as I walked out of his office with my head hung low, I believe you guys now that you look at that stuff.
Cool. Wow. I'm looking at your ads up here on top of the chat, and the last one that came up asked me if I wanted to marry a Russian lady. Serious. I'm taking screenshots here. And for Vlad, know that this is not coming from like some kind of cookie on my machine.
Way to throw you under the bus, though, huh, Vlad? What a guy.
So, a couple of questions that were in here was what else is getting deprecated in 2016? Quick answer to that one. We haven't said anything's getting deprecated. We just talked about InfoPath, coming back to 2016. We've announced that on our blog. So we're not in terms of deprecation. So a lot of people may be wondering, hey, what specific features are coming? Can you detail specific capabilities? Can you talk about deprecations? And truth be told, that we're not at a stage in product development at this point to where we can talk about specific investment areas in detail. So, we can't talk about, hey, feature foo is going to be this, and this is what it's going to deliver. So we're not at that particular phase yet, which is why we're holding off until Ignite, because we feel like we'll be in a position, we know we'll be in a position to really detail specific investments around with the product. And at the same time, if anything's deprecated at that particular point in time, we'll also have information to share with you around those, particular deprecations. So, that's kind of where we're at, there. So another question was from Vlad is, is SharePoint 2016 going to carry forward STS ADM? Or is it going to be PowerShell only? And that's another one of those decisions that we are still looking at anytime that we choose to remove anything. So even something that seems as benign as STS ADM, there's typically an upgrader or an upgrade path that touches that particular aspect of the product that we need to be cognizant of. So we have to weigh the cost of supporting that upgrader versus the cost of sustaining, the feature that it actually touches. So, at the end of the day, PowerShell is the, direction that we want to be able to move in. I think what you're going to find is you're going to find a richer server OM. You're going to find an expanded set of capabilities from a PowerShell perspective. When it comes to STS ADM, like I said, that's just one of those questions that we don't know the answer to. We may bring back Spin and Spout. Maybe we'll bring back Smigrate. If you're old enough to remember those.
Oh yeah, I'm old enough to know. I remember what STS ADM was called before it was STS ADM. That's how old I am. Yeah, that was what OWS ADM, I think.
Yeah. So long story short, we're going to get there. Like I said, Ignite's going to be kind of that moment to where that we're going to use to really disclose it. We're going to have some great demos. A lot of the sessions are going to be, there's going to be 2016 content embedded. So if you think about like the BCS session that you may see today, it says using BCS with SharePoint Online. That session is not only going to be about current capabilities, it's also going to be about how we anticipate evolving data connectivity in SharePoint. The hybrid pre-day is going to disclose our vision and strategy for hybrid moving forward. Then there's going to be the 2016 sessions. There's going to be a 2016 session for leveraging SQL vNext. So that's going to be like a future session. So there's going to be a lot of great stuff. The session catalog's still getting pulled together. So, like I said, that's where we're at.
The chat room is very excited about Spin and Spout. I think that probably shows they never used Spin and Spout. But
so one real quick question before I probably should let you go, since you kind of interrupted, my family time.
Yeah, I do have one other thing to talk about after this, but yeah, grab your last question.
To talk about with me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So speak a bit on what you'll be covering in the hybrid session. So at the hybrid session, we're going to do a number of different things. We're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how hybrid is implemented today using today's technology, SharePoint 2013 and Office 365 as it stands. Within that same course, that same compilation of courseware, we're also going to talk about how we see SharePoint or hybrid as we move forward into 2016 and how we're evolving the hybrid strategy and capabilities. So it's going to be, hey, here's how you do a hybrid search scenario with 2013 and Office 365. Here's how you position yourself best to take advantage of new capabilities in 2016, and here's how you implement those capabilities in 2016. So it's going to be kind of end to end. So I'll let you ask your last question now, Todd, and then I will get to my family, who probably hates you by now for making me sit in here and talk to you.
I apologize 1,000 times. I'll send them some corn or something. So one of the things that I was going to talk about this week before we got everything nailed down for you to be on was the changing in the patch policy for on-prem SharePoint. Do you have anything to say about that, or are you driving into a tunnel and your connection getting fuzzy?
Yeah, so from a patching perspective, we've constantly looked at ways to evolve our patching strategy when it comes to SharePoint. So even though we've never had a complaint about the quality of cumulative updates or service packs, or any installation problems with
There's communication problems. That whole bit you just said got garbled.
Right. So like I said, even though we've had a pretty good track record with cumulative updates and service packs, we are constantly looking at different ways that we can improve the process of distribution of cumulative updates and service packs. So, we went from a bi-monthly cadence to a monthly cadence. Now, as you've seen, we've moved to Windows Update. Now, truth be told, if you think about service packs for Windows and other technologies, they're delivered through Windows Update. And I think what differentiates SharePoint in many cases is this kind of aspect of having to run ps-config. So let's assume we could patch you with like zero downtime, right? We could just rev some assemblies in the background as a background process, and you'd never know. People would probably be more than acceptable of having them delivered and installed through Windows Update. But from a delivery mechanism perspective, it's the way that our other partners are delivering updates today. So it only made sense for us to participate in an engineering construct that all the other teams are leveraging. Now, I think what you're seeing today is we're delivering them through Windows Update, but you're going to see them evolve over time in the way that we distribute them and the way that we actually orchestrate distribution of a patch on the machine itself, the way that we lay down the binaries. So think of this as kind of a first step in a longer journey. So don't look at this as the end state, like, oh, they're delivering it over Windows Update today. Think of it as this is going to be the first step in a longer overall journey that's really going to improve the patching process. Somebody's kind of calling BS on my service pack thing. Actually, a couple people. But hey, you know what? I never personally received an email that there was anything wrong with cumulative updates or service packs. So plausible deniability tells me that there was never any kind of problem. Otherwise, I would have heard about it. And since nobody emailed me, it didn't exist.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think I can see the positives to what you guys are doing, and I know you guys like to keep the latest bits out there from a supportability standpoint, from a security standpoint. I mean, there's a lot of good reasons to do that. I'm glad to hear that this is an in-progress thing, because I think there's some places to improve on that. But I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I had it in the notes that I sent you earlier. I didn't know if you actually read that or not.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind. I'll answer as much as I possibly can, within the boundaries that we have. But like I said, don't look at patching orchestration as you see it today as kind of the end state, and think of it as a first step forward in a better patching strategy that maybe you're going to learn more about at Ignite. So there's going to be that as well. And I'm kind of looking at a comment about whether or not we're going to deliver patches through Outlook attachments. Probably not through Outlook attachments, but we are looking at OneDrive.
OneDrive, there you go. There you go. Another piece of technology people love to hate.
Yeah, so...
OneDrive. Well, I've taken a tremendous amount of your time, Bill, and your family's your supper's probably getting cold. I feel terrible about that. But thanks for showing up and humoring us and for all the information. I appreciate it. Do you want to throw out like your Twitter handle so people can send you some love on the Twitters?
I did. I even put my email in there so people can complain now about patches, and I'll know about it.
Excellent. So thanks
Awesome.
again. I appreciate you showing up, and I will see you hopefully in a couple of months in Chicago.
Yeah, thanks much, and back anytime if you dare.
All right. See you, man. Bye.
Yep, see ya.
All right, folks. I have kicked Bill out of the thing, so you're stuck with me. So that was pretty cool. I've known Bill for a while, and so he was one of the first people that I wanted to get on. He was one of the reasons that I wanted to switch to this new format with the Hangouts, so that I could bring people in, because Bill's a great guy, wealth of information, and he's not in the chat room anymore, so I don't have to suck up to him. Okay, good enough. So chat room, you guys behaved yourselves quite well. You didn't embarrass me very much, so that was all good. But one thing I did want to talk about with a little more detail now is the change to the patching structure that Microsoft announced this month. So starting this month, SharePoint patches, they'll continue to be available with the cumulative updates and all the ways that we've been getting them, but they will also now start showing up reliably, consistently in Windows Update. And so there's some steps you have to go through to make that happen if you haven't already, and I've got an upcoming blog post that will walk you through that. But for you, the SharePoint administrator, you need to be aware of that. You need to know that unless you take some action, there's a good chance that in the background, SharePoint's going to get updated without you knowing it. So my recommendation, in reverse order of how good of an idea it is go onto your SharePoint servers and don't let them automatic update. And so I have all my servers, I have them set to download only, and then Patch Tuesday is the second Tuesday of every month. We know about that, and so then go out there, like the second Wednesday of every month, look at the patches, install the Windows patches, the Internet Explorer patches, things like that. But don't install the SharePoint patches right away. Same story that's always been with those. Let those marinate for a while. Check my blog. Check www.toddclint.com/sp2013 builds or /sp2010 builds and see what each patch does. You can also follow me on Twitter at sp2013 patches, at sp2010 patches, to find out about each patch. But just know that they should show up there. So the first thing you can do is set Windows Update on your SharePoint servers to update or to download only and manually update them. A better solution, and the solution that I hope more folks do, is, if you're not already using it, implement a WSUS server. So that's the internal Windows Update server, and create a computer group for your SharePoint boxes, create a computer group for hopefully your test lab, and then you can control at one central point which patches go out to your servers. And I think it's a better idea, because I'm worried about people's, setting that to not download or not install the patches, then not getting any important patches, and that's a bad thing. You want those Windows patches, you want those security patches. Those hackers are having a field day with things, so you want to get those patched. But WSUS free download, runs on Windows Server, and kind of gives you a centralized place. So that's a big change. I've got the blog post out there. If you go to www.toddclint.com/SharePoint patches in WU, that's my blog post on it. And by all means, leave comments out there and let us know what you're thinking. Good stories, bad stories, all that kind of stuff. So that was one of them. I didn't mean to throw Bill under the bus on that, but wanted to mention that. So one final thing before I go, I had a couple of things to talk about, but Bill and I went long. It was a good conversation. For those of us that have Windows phones, all 10 or so of us on the planet, if you want to beta test the Windows 10 for phone platform, that is available now. So this is different than the preview for developers, which gives you the next minor revision of the OS, so 8.1 or 8.12 or whatever, because that's coming out also. Now there's an option for you to try the next major version of the operating system, Windows 10 for phones. So the way that you do that is you sign up for the Insider program, which is the same program that you use to get Windows 10 for your desktops. Sign up for that. Then on your Windows phone, go out to the store and look for Windows Insider and install that app. Same thing. You run the app, you go through, you say, yes, I know what I'm doing. It toggles a bit, and then you do an update on your phone. You get Windows 10 for your phone. Now, of course, like a dummy, I went out and did that the second it was available on my Lumia 830 right here, my daily driver phone. And not a lot of changes. They're kind of slipping things out. There's a few changes in here that are pretty good. But one of the things that I want to make clear is that this is a beta OS, and I'm not sure I recommend it for your daily driver yet. It's not so bad now, but the first few days that it was on my phone, it was laggy. It was really rough, so I don't know if I'd do it again. But I'll give you a quick preview here. Let me show you. So one of the big changes is the notification screen at the top can be large like that. You can see it's 3 rows of tiles, or I can collapse it back to the 1 row of tiles that we're used to in Windows Phone 8.1. The other thing is you can see I've got a notification from my email, and I've got a thing where I can collapse or expand that. I can see over here, if I click that, it will make that email, I can see the full subject and all that. So there's a bunch of little things. But again, for your main phone, it's gotten better, but I don't know if I would recommend it yet. It's definitely for the hobbyist, for the nerd, all that kind of stuff. If you do put Windows 10 on your phone and you don't like it, you can go back to Windows 8.1. You can download the utility and plug it in and redo it. So there are a bunch of blog posts on what is in this post. There's a bunch of stuff on windowscentral.com. Paul Thurrott has a bunch of stuff at thurrott.com also that talk about that. And probably at a later podcast, I'll talk a little bit more about what's out there. But when they say don't put it on production equipment, they mean it this time. There's some weird stuff. The lag was the big thing. That seems to have gotten better over the last few days, but it's still a little frustrating. So that is out there. Okay, so we already talked to Bill. We've already done the topics and musings. A couple minutes because I've gone super long tonight, and that is the self-promotion. So right now, the only things that I can talk about that I've got going on is in a couple of months, I will be going to the SharePoint Evolution Conference, and that is in beautiful, sunny London, England. You can find out about that at SharePointEvolutionConference.com. That is April 20th through the 22nd. And I will be doing 2 sessions, upgrading to SharePoint 2013 Part 1 and upgrading to SharePoint 2013 Part 2. So that will be a great session. I'll be doing some demos and talking about all kinds of great upgrade options. So if you're in Europe, definitely check that out. Swing by SharePointEvolutionConference.com. All right, so that wraps it up. Tonight's supersized show was great. Thanks to Bill again for showing up. I was very happy to have him come in. The chat room, I'll stick around for a while, so don't you guys go anywhere. Those of you that downloaded this, you can find me at toddclint.com, toddclint.netcast, or on YouTube at youtube.com/toddclintnetcast. Thanks, everybody. I will see you next week. It'll be me or Shane. Not sure. I'm going to be traveling, but we'll be here next week. So we'll see you then. Thanks a lot.